Happy Wednesday, friends. It is so good to see you. I'm really excited that you are here with me this Wednesday because, boy, oh boy, are we going to have a lot of fun. If you haven't already, do say hello here in the live chat. I promise we are all friendly. We're all very nice. So if you haven't already, let us know where you're coming in from, what's in your cup. I'll go first. Austin, Texas, and I have some green tea with jasmine today. So I just wanted to say a big hello to Christina and Raul and Sarah and Vance and Rachel and Lisa. Oh my gosh, we have a party going on here today. If you are nervous about maybe typing in the chat for the first time, don't worry. We are very nice. Be brave. Type in the chat. Don't worry. I'm so excited that you are joining us today because we are digging into a subject that I am very, very excited about. And so many times I have to remove myself from the soapbox that I get on about this topic because it is just one that just flames up within me and drives me in such a major way. And that is all about the power and performance of your digital networking. And I know I say digital networking, and I say that very specifically because I know when we talk about networking, the sort of instantaneous picture that everybody has in their mind is like, I don't know, we're in a conference room or maybe we're in a convention center. There's name tags involved. There's like bad white wine that nobody knows what it is. I think it's always like a really buttery Chardonnay. Sorry if you like Chardonnay, but I don't like it. And they always serve it at these networking events. It's terrible. So I just feel like our minds go there and we instantly think, well, I don't do networking. I don't like networking, or I don't actively network. So anything that Kim says doesn't apply to me. Because we are all networking all the time thanks to these crazy things. And I'm holding up my cell phone and waving it around because our cell phones are basically little mini digital networking platforms. And why that matters is because before you jump on a Zoom call with somebody, meet somebody for coffee, or even go out on a date, you are, let's call it 9 times out of 10, Googling that person. And by the way, the only one time that you're not Googling is when you literally ran out of time. Like you're going to the coffee meeting and you're late and you're thinking, I don't even have time to stalk this person. I don't even have time to Google them to stalk them. But you better believe if you have time before that meeting, or before that date, or before that conference, you're Googling that person. And you're doing all sorts of Nancy Drew Hardy Boy detective work to see what you can find out about that person. And for most people, and I do mean most people, when you do press their name or their job or their name and their job into Google, you will come up with their LinkedIn page. That is always coming up on page 1 of Google search results because the platform is 18 years old. It's been in the game for a long, long time, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't care how fun your tiki-taki is. It's not going to replace LinkedIn. So you can have fun on your TikTok, on your Instagram reels, on your Snapchats, on your Pinterest. Those are great. Chef's kiss. We love a good TikTok. But it's not going to replace your LinkedIn, and it's certainly not going to be where your boss goes to see if you should get that promotion, if you should win that award, if they should give you that raise. And if they are going to TikTok, then we have some bigger questions for you that I would like you to answer in the chat. Because what kind of job is that? And perhaps we might be interested in it. So all that to say that when we think about what people are finding when they Google us, it is something that we not only have to address once, we got to keep addressing it. Because the good news is we're constantly changing. We're changing jobs, maybe we're changing volunteer opportunities. Heck, in COVID, I know a lot of people that changed locations. They're no longer based in New York. They're no longer based in Miami. They're no longer based in LA. So the good news is we are constantly changing. The bad news is that means we have to constantly be updating our LinkedIn, talking about what's new with us, and sharing our great thoughts that are in our heads with other people. And I just want to say a big shout out to Sanja and Donna and everybody and Mark and Jen who are saying hi in the chat. Gold stars, because this is the networking that we're talking about. And my guess is you see somebody, you see Donna type something, and then you click, Donna. And what do? You click on her profile picture. So you yourself are living in the matrix dream that I'm talking about right now. So I am really excited. And I would say if you are into networking, do what Kevin did in the chat and drop your LinkedIn profile. We love that. We love a good networking session. Go say hi to Kevin, click on, say hi. If you're feeling brave, put yours in there too, because we all like networking with people. So let me just shout out with two things that are really important before I bring on my special mystery guests. I know I'm going to surprise you. I love surprises. But two things I wanted to show you really quickly. So when we're talking about this, what do we actually mean? Like, okay, Kim, digital networking, I get it. How can I fix it? How can I improve? What can I be doing better? Well, first and foremost, what you can be doing better is 9 times out of 10, most people that I'm meeting with or seeing, they could use a little scrub-a-dub-dub of their LinkedIn. They need to like get under the armpits a little bit, give it a little rinse, wash, and repeat. So I want to show you 2 things right now that you can turn on, activate, or at least think about. Okay, maybe not making money moves, but just think about when it comes to your LinkedIn, when it comes to what people are finding. So I won't ask for a volunteer. I always know how that ends. Nobody likes volunteering. Everybody sinks to the back. It's that weird, awkward silence. I never know what to do. So I will volunteer myself. But if someone's feeling brave, I'll take a volunteer, but I'm not even gonna pretend like anyone will volunteer. So I will use myself as an example. So I will use my own LinkedIn just to show you what happens when people land on it. What are 2 things that they are going to be looking for? So 9 times out of 10, when somebody is landing on your LinkedIn profile, the one thing that they would like to do more than anything, like more than anything else in the whole wide world, is they want to see who you know in common. They want to see where those synergies are going to lie. Of course, StreamYard is not letting me share my screen, so you're just going to have to look on your own profile. There's a thing on there called mutual connections. So people want to see who do we know in common. And the more people you know, the instantly people feel better from you. That's science. Look it up. There's tons of case studies on it. I'm not a psychologist. We can get somebody else back on here, but I'm just saying that shows like, hey, it's not stranger danger. We have some people in common. We have some good people in common. We have 50 people in common. So that's number one, why digital networking is so important, because you in real life, IRL, as the kids say, you might know, let's say 100 people that work at Microsoft. But if you're not connected to those 100 people on LinkedIn, when I look on your profile, I'm thinking, oh, we don't have anybody in common. Oh, they only know like 2 people at Microsoft. When in real life, you know 100 people, but you haven't taken the time to connect with them on LinkedIn. So to the naked eye, it looks like, oh, she doesn't know anybody there. So that's number one. I know it's tedious to sometimes meet people and remember to go in their LinkedIn and make those connections, but it's super important. And that is the first reason why. The second reason that it is so important to think about this digital networking, pay attention to this, sign up for opportunities. Shameless plug, scan your phone. Why this matters is because people are looking at it all the time. So the second thing that people are also looking at is they are looking at opportunities where there are common connections. So maybe you went to the same college, maybe you volunteer at the same place, or maybe you had a past job in common. You're, again, looking for those commonalities. So if you know that you've been volunteering and you don't put it down, how's anyone going to know? So exactly what Brendan says here. I tend to look at what myself and the person in the profile has in common. It works well for me, but yes, mutual connections do better. Exactly. You want to see, hey, not only do I volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, but this other person volunteers at the Boys and Girls Club. You want to look for those common connections. But again, if you're not actively thinking, okay, where have I started volunteering? Okay, what have I started to do a little bit more of? What's my side hustle? All of these things, if you're not actively starting to put those out somewhere, whether it is LinkedIn, whether it is the World Wide Web in some other way on your social media, or just in any sort of content that you're posting, it's going to be really hard for people to find because newsflash, they can't read your mind. I wish they could. It would save us all a lot of time, but they can't. And they probably also don't want to know your inner thoughts. Let's be honest. That would be a little scary. So we just want to make sure that those two things are constantly upkept and that we're tweaking and optimizing those to the best of our abilities. So I know, like I said, I warned you, I get on my soapbox about this. I didn't want to be the only one getting on a soapbox about it. So I know I promised you 2 mystery guests who are going to join me to remove me from my soapbox and instead make this a cozy coffee conversation as if we were all in the coffee shop talking together about this very in-depth subject of digital networking and presenting your best self digitally and online. I will remind everybody, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, drop them in the chat. And also, if you are thinking to yourself, I think there are going to be some golden gems here, I can guarantee you there will be. And I can guarantee you, you will probably forget to take the notes or put it on a piece of paper and then you spill coffee on it and then it ends up in the trash. So don't do that. And instead, go to sendmenotes.com. We will send you all the notes and links and resources and books mentions and podcast mention straight to your inbox. You don't have to worry about that scrappy piece of paper that you spilled something on and threw it in the trash. Don't even worry about it. I will take the notes for you and we'll send them straight to your inbox in the next 48 hours. So don't even worry about that. You can go to sendmenotes.com and we'll send you all the notes. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my 2 surprise guests. Both of these guests are amazingly talented individuals. They run companies, they have leadership positions, both in the corporate world and in volunteer capacities, and just all in all are people that I really think that if you don't already know or you haven't already connected with, that holy moly, you should be connecting with them. So please help me welcome, maybe raise a cup wherever you are, and help me welcome Jeff and Mandy.
Cheers.
Hey guys, cheers.
Cheers.
How is it going?
It
Awesome.
is going.
I love it. Well, I'm super curious. I know I was just on my soapbox about it, but I always like to level set, kind of make us feel like we're all one and the same. Do you Google people before you meet them? Jeff, I'll let you go first.
100% of the time. And it doesn't matter if it's like for VCs or new clients or in hiring positions, especially with hiring, 100% Google.
And Mandy, what about you?
I use Spokeo.
Oh, tell us about that.
I don't always, but it's kind of fun. I didn't plan on saying this. It's a private investigator website. Because sometimes
tell us more.
You can look up people's names and it'll tell you like where they live, where they have lived, so that I'm a woman, and sometimes I just want to know I'm not talking to a stalker.
Exactly.
So after, it depends where I am in my networking cycle with this person. But yes, definitely do use Google, especially if I'm not sure how to spell their name. Otherwise, I just go straight to LinkedIn, or I type in their name / I go linkedin.com space this person's name space this company. So I just want to go straight to it.
And they always find them.
Yeah.
At Google, very quick. They always end up finding them. Well, I also wanted to say another reason that Jeff and Mandy and I know each other is because they were both members of the first cohort of Career Capital, which was so much fun. And I'm just curious for you guys, what is something that, we had talked about maybe over the course of the 5 weeks that we spent together that you were just kind of like, like I never thought about it that way before?
So many things. First,
if you had to pick one,
I think if I had to pick one, it would be the importance of people who viewed you also viewed. And before I took your course, I was like, this is just not where I want it to be. I don't do the same work as these people. So like, let's, when I say a scrub, I like to make sure people wash their legs. So I'm like, I wash the legs of my LinkedIn profile as well as the armpits, just to just like refresh and say like, okay, these are the types of people who I want to be associated with, who are viewing my profile at the same time. So I think there's many more, but that's the one that comes most to mind.
For me, I would say the street view. It's the looking at all the real estate that is on LinkedIn and realizing afterwards how much was basically wasted and how valuable that actually is. That was 100% changed after taking the course. It was amazing.
Yeah, because most people don't realize, I mean, I know I harp on it all the time, but like when you're quickly looking somebody up, when you're like running into a meeting or running into like a Zoom call and you're like, Eric Schwartz, like what, who's this Eric Schwartz, whatever, you're spending like 3 to 5 seconds. It's not like you're leisurely sitting back and being like, Eric Schwartz, tell me everything. Like, let me look into this long laundry list. I mean, you're really going on and getting like a split second, quick scan. What can I find? What is ideal for me? And that, I think, is one of the hardest parts for people, and I will say myself included, is because we are not objective when it comes to ourselves. I love the saying that it's really hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle, because you're in the bottle. How are you supposed to read the label? It looks like backwards. You're like seeing things all morphed. You're like, how do I do this? And so I'm curious for you guys, like before this, was it a common practice for you to kind of, whether it was like asking a friend or relying on someone to say like, hey, help me read the outside of my bottle?
Oh yeah.
Not for me. I was not comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I know. It can be really uncomfortable because you're like.
I'm very comfortable. And I wanted everyone to tell me all the things. So anytime like I was in, like it became part of the conversation, anytime I would have like a career coach or someone who seemed like they had their LinkedIn SHIT together, I was like, can you take a look at mine real quick? Is there anything you've changed? Or does it look clear? Can you like tell what I do by my LinkedIn page? And they're like, no, I can't. So, so that I found it very helpful. I'm also an extrovert. So like all my ideas come from talking to people.
Well, and I think it's also, I think a lot of it comes from how are other people interpreting you? I know, again, for me, like sometimes I think, and actually Shelby and I, we were just talking about this last week. We did something on my website that I thought, and she thought made so much sense. We're like, this is amazing. Like, good job. We've really nailed it. And then we implemented, I don't know if anyone's heard of this program. There's a program called Crazy Egg. It's kind of creepy, kind of like Spokio, what Mandy said. But essentially what it does is it actually tracks mouse movements on your website. I know, it's super creep, but you can see where people are clicking, how they're using it. Long story short, Shelby and I figured out that like no one was using this feature. The feature that we thought was so great and so easy. And it sort of, again, reminded me that you have this sort of confirmation bias that you think things make perfect sense. But then when you start to get other people's opinions, they're like, that makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes everybody's LinkedIn over and over again, you sort of need that thing because you can't trust yourself to go, well, this is perfect. This makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So true.
Yeah, one of the things, Kim, is during that course where you did the live feedback of the changes, that was the first time I'd ever had that kind of feedback. For me, I'm not an extrovert by any means, so I'm a little shy about certain things. And when you looked at it and you went right through, and the value of that, it's amazing. It just shifted my entire thought process on it. So that was huge.
I love that. And I'm curious for you guys, have you seen, and obviously I know, COVID has been an interesting time for all of us, but have you guys seen where, your sort of digital relationships, or digitally you kind of look somebody up, maybe like a tweet that they did, or maybe like an article that they wrote, and then you almost become like internet friends? And has that internet friendship ever turned into, maybe you're working with them, or maybe you partnered on something, or some sort of tangible, like real life outcome?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think when I was doing mostly DEI consulting, or when I started my own company, like when you're in a corporate environment, you have like a natural platform already. Like the company has budget to send you places, to get you into events and conferences. And a lot of that you don't have to do. And so when you're on your own, it's like, oh, shoot. So I had a really important cadence of like reaching out to people who were doing the same things that I was, and who had friends in common, and to like exchange ideas, because we all were out here trying to do the same thing. And the more we could exchange and give feedback, the better we would both do. And I think, my specific example, when it came to DEI consulting, especially in 2020, a lot of us were talking to each other because we're like, this is not the work I do, and everyone wants me to do this work. Is this the work you do? Can I pass this to you? And so there were a lot of conversations around like, how do we do a better job as like a group and as colleagues, so that we can make sure that we can save ourselves time. So that's one thing. And then, and yes, there have been, I come out to New York a lot. And so when I meet people online, I'm like, I'm in New York. I know it's easy to get around here. Let's meet for coffee or lunch. And like, it's just so cool to see people in person who you've been talking to over email and video. And it's kind of like, it's not a blind date at all. It's just like, you're just so excited to see that person.
You're like, you're here.
That's awesome.
And what about for you, Jeff?
So for me, I have two really good examples that both connected actually to the Coffee with Kim. And the first one was, you had Jason Pfeiffer on that was early 2020. It was one of the first episodes. And from there, I actually made a connection with him. And then at one point he had reached out for articles, and he had posted it, and I had actually was able to communicate with him, and I sent in an article, and I was actually had my first byline in Entrepreneur magazine. It was a direct result of that digital relationship and that same connections. And also recently I had the chance to meet up with another major influencer in New York City live, Kim, from making those digital connections to in real life. It's the value there is just, it's incredible. If you use the opportunities, they're pretty amazing.
Well, that's why I think we're at such like a magical pinnacle, especially like with these crazy phones that we all have, because never, like, you think back to, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted your name or an article or a feature of you in a magazine, on a TV show, it would be like, you would have to know who to call. You'd have to like get a press kit sent to New York. Like it would be this whole process.
Yep.
And now it's as simple as like responding to a tweet. I joke with people all the time, business wise, not love life wise. I shoot my shot in the DMs all the time. All the time. If I have a business crush on someone, or I think someone's doing something really cool, like I'm right there. I'm DMing, I'm like emailing, I'm messaging, and you would be shocked how many times like people respond, or even if it's their assistant responding, they'll be like,
Mhm.
well, we're taking submissions, email blah, blah, blah at blah, blah, blah.com. And you're like, well, now I have an email address, which is more than I had 15 minutes ago before I sent this message. So I think that people don't even realize the power that if you reach out, that's huge, because if somebody responds or something happens from that, I think that's magical. I love that example, Jeff, from Entrepreneur Magazine, because it's like, yes, could that have happened 15 years ago on its own? Probably, but it would have taken a lot more work, instead of just like, oh, we messaged and I liked a couple posts and commented on a couple things. And then when they asked for submissions, I submitted, and I wasn't like a strange name in an inbox. So
100%.
that's pretty great. I'm curious for you guys, do you now notice people's digital presence more now than you have before? Because you sort of, I always liken it to like, once somebody tells you about something like a certain TV show or whatever, then all of a sudden you pick it up everywhere. You're like, oh, they mentioned Ted Lasso again. They mentioned Ted Lasso again. But like before then, you never noticed it. I'm curious if you have that sort of same phenomenon about other people's digital presence.
For me, 100%. It feels like a superpower now of just scanning on somebody's either LinkedIn or seeing their connections to Instagram and seeing if there's disparity between them, if they're using one and not the other, and where things are just misplaced and just they're not using the value that's there. I see it all the time now just because of the course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like I can learn a lot about someone by how they're using each platform. So if they're on the grams or the TikTokies, which I just freaking love, I know that they are probably doing retail. They're looking for like individuals to sign up for something that they have. And on LinkedIn, I feel like it's more of sharing ideas with a call to action. And so a lot of times what I judge people on now on LinkedIn is like, you want me to read this whole thing and then you don't have a call to action after. And so and people using LinkedIn for stuff that I don't like, I don't really understand how that gets you a job. How sharing that gets you a job.
I'm confused.
Like, good job, you got a new dog. I love that for you. Post it on Instagram.
Exactly. I think there's definitely this sort of interesting, and I'm always curious, like if that was COVID, quite frankly, where we became, it wasn't just work from home, it was live from work. Yeah. And everybody got used to like kids running around in the background of Zoom and dogs barking and whatever, that now that sort of escalated the whole like post my dog on LinkedIn, where you're like, wait, I thought I was getting business tips from you, and now I'm seeing your dog. Like, I'm confused. So I think it's an interesting point. I think Jen brings up an interesting point of, being human in a digital world, and even being human in a business world. It's complicated, I think, to figure out where that line is sometimes. But I totally agree with you, Mandy. I think we're seeing it a ton on LinkedIn right now, and I'm not actually sure why.
Mm-hmm. It's probably because COVID. They don't know themselves some Kim K.
Exactly. That could be it.
They don't have a strategy. They're just spraying and praying.
They're just spraying and praying, man. I also just love this quote from Rachel. I commented on a post on LinkedIn and then got asked to be featured in an upcoming article on a woman who started a business during a pandemic. This is everything. Like, people don't realize that. I think also one difference, and I don't know if you guys notice this as well, is I feel like comments and like the support that you get on LinkedIn is just different from other platforms.
Yep.
Like on Instagram, you might get a couple like heart emojis or like muscle emojis or like yay. On LinkedIn, and maybe it's because we're typing on a keyboard usually instead of on our phones. I feel like most of the time you're looking at Instagram on your phone. You're not looking at Instagram on a desktop. Whereas a lot of times people are looking at LinkedIn on a desktop instead of on their phone. They're able to like type out really thoughtful responses. Like, hey, I saw you had that problem with firing someone. Here's 3 steps that I took before I fired someone, and it helps so much more. So I don't know if you guys also found that there's almost like more thoughtful answers on LinkedIn.
Totally. Yes. And I love that some of the people I follow have such amazing engagement, because I will, load more comments, because I just want to see what people think. And a lot of my friends are pretty loud about racism and things that companies should be doing. And so it's really interesting to see people's true colors on the comments. And then I can be like, okay, I'm not going to try to work with you. So it's just, it reveals a lot of stuff about potential business partners.
Yeah, I'm not going to sing my response, but for sure, I think that if you really see the value of LinkedIn, if people see it, I said I talk about there's like vampires, there's ghosts, right? So it's the vampires are the ones that are just trying to take everything. The ghosts just kind of lurk around and maybe do a like every once in a while, and then there are the people that do the value add that are like Mandy was talking about. They're looking for posts that they can relate to or people that they can help, and they're looking to provide. And I think that when you connect with people like that, that's where the true value of those connections come in, is that you're adding value back. It's not just about taking value from someone's, here's my tips, and then you're like, okay, great, I'm going to implement that. But then provide feedback to say like, this was awesome. Like my life has changed because of this thing that you provided. I think it's huge, and it's a very big difference versus, you look, oh, that looks really nice on you on Instagram.
And I feel like there's something really unique about conversations on LinkedIn too, because I do feel like people do make an effort to make it professional, or like, kind of, like you said, can be really thoughtful. And so it's so much, I think it's so much more enriching than what you might see on Instagram.
I'm curious for you guys when it comes to LinkedIn, if somebody is feeling like apprehensive or feels this pressure of like, how do I create, like, I love what Mandy and Jeff are saying. I want to add value. I want to help other people. I'm like a giving person, but I'm feeling like, I'm feeling challenged to stay active or challenged to even start. What kind of advice would you give to that person?
The first for me, it's for staying active, you have to make sure that you are following the right people. And by the right people, I mean people that are speaking to the things that inspire you. Anyone that's posting things that are just negative over and over, you should probably unfollow or mute or just disconnect from. And stay on the topics, use the hashtags and search for hashtags and things like that are on the topics that you're looking for. And you need to motivate yourself in a way too, to just be, when you're trying to add value back. I think if you go in with a value added mindset where you're saying, I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at these comments and I'm going to add value into that, you'll see people will want to engage with you too. Like the more you add, the more you'll receive. It's a give and take. And that to me would be my number one advice. Just go in and say positive things to people too.
Yeah, I love giving people their flowers, especially and specifically when someone has written or posted something that I've been thinking about but didn't have the language for. And so then I repost that and I promote them, or I comment on it and tag people, because I think so much of what we do in business is all around language and what kind of language you're using. And I have some friends who are just amazing writers. And also it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole on LinkedIn. Sometimes I'll go to look for one person and like 30 minutes later, I'm like, what did I come on here for again? And why am I posting with this many emojis? So I think it's important to stay focused on like what your goal is. Like if you're a recruiter, there's so much noise. Second, and so you get invited. Because I'm a CEO, I have people reaching out to me all the time wanting to sell me stuff. And I have to be really diligent about not connecting with them, because it's like where there's one, there's many. And so if I'm giving off vibes that I'm willing to connect with people that I don't have any intention in doing business with, then I'm kind of not setting myself up for success.
Well, it's like Jeff said, then you're attracting all the vampires, right? Then you're just attracting all the people that are like, sell, sell, sell. And you're like, what are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Go away.
Yep.
I'm curious for you guys, if someone's feeling like, okay, I know that I want to start, voicing my own opinions on social media, and I feel like I want to start asking for help to read the label from outside of the bottle and really kind of look at my narrative and my LinkedIn profile, and I'm ready for help with that whole process. And they might be saying, okay, maybe that's something that I want to do. In this case, maybe a cohort learning experience is right for me. What was one of like the scariest things that you were sort of on the fence about when it came to learning with other people, or just going into like a live learning session? It wasn't something that you could, do in your pajamas maybe all the time. It was with other human beings.
It's just such a faster turnaround when you're in a cohort setting. It's just so much faster. And I grew up playing sports, and I like feel uncomfortable in my comfort zone. So I'm always looking for ways to stretch a little bit. And so if something makes me a little bit nervous, like, I got to listen to someone give me feedback, and like, it may not be, maybe it's always valuable. It's always valuable to understand different perspectives, even if they're not your own.
Oh, that hits. That one hits. What about you, Jeff?
That's awesome. Yeah, and we connected, Mandy. We connected through there as well, and that's the amazing amount of connections that have come through there. I can't even express. I both in real life and digitally as well. And I would say for anyone though, the scary part about going in, for me, was two things. It was a little bit of imposter syndrome, like going into something like that, which I experienced going into our mastermind as well. And it's when you realize that it's just other humans connecting on the other side that it's trying to learn as well, it gets rid of a lot of it. And I think also, again, going back to adding value, if you're adding value in, I think that it feels a lot less, it's a lot less intimidating. And also, it did feel a little bit, before I went into it, I was worried that it was going to feel like it was too much about me and my LinkedIn profile. And I'm not used to focusing just on myself. I love solving problems, and I help people solve problems all the time. And it was very strange to have that focus on me for part of that time. But, when you use Slack and communication tools to help other people, and you realize how much is actually there, it's intensely valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I feel like you just touched on something huge, and I think something that I see a lot. I always joke that I think there's like a diagram that, the more someone is a leader, or the more they hold themselves in a leader position, actually the less time they spend on themselves. And usually it's because they start to fit in this archetype of like, I'm a leader. It's about the team. It's about my staff, or it's about my employees, or it's about other people, and you tend to start putting yourself last. Like, wasn't there a book called Leaders Eat Last?
Yes.
Or am I making that up? Yeah,
that's correct.
That's a book, Leaders Eat Last. And so I feel like that is very much a mindset, which ironically, the leaders are the one that you're like, no, you should lead by example. You have to focus on yourself a little bit. I think that that's always so ironic too, especially as we start to come into 2022, that everyone's focused on self-care, but usually the people that are boasting about self-care actually do no self-care on themselves. I was like, how does that connect?
It's true.
Wow.
It is really, really true. And as a leader of people, reporting to people who are in the C-suite, it's like people in the C-suite feel like they're an exception. Like, you can have that time to yourself, but I'm not allowed to because, I have too much responsibility. And I have found the exact opposite of like when a leader sets boundaries or I set boundaries, then the team is also comfortable doing it. So if I say something like, hey, I put my kids to bed, so I'm like pretty much offline from 5 to 9, but like, just because I responded to your emails at midnight doesn't mean that you need to reply. Like, I'm just dumping emails back. And I think just being really communicative around our lifestyles and what us as humans, I think that is really, really important to help, set individual boundaries with each other as a team.
I think that's so true. And really, I love this point by Jen. You can't take people places they're not willing to go. Like, if you yourself aren't going to focus on yourself as a leader, like do that sort of like self-maintenance, self-care, look at your own self, look at your own narrative. I don't know how you expect your team to do it, how you expect other people to do it, because you're not leading by example almost in that way.
Mm-hmm. And when you don't set boundaries, you're also not allowing your people to grow. If you lead a team and you're, on paternity leave and you're taking 3 weeks, yet you're still taking meetings, that can also feel like, yo, aren't you supposed to be on maternity leave? Like we said, we got this. Yet you're still taking, well, also it's probably because you want to get out of the house because you have a newborn, fine. But like, don't leave us out of that.
That's so true.
It's so true. I'm curious for you guys just to kind of like geek out for a minute when it comes to like digital networking and your digital appearance and your digital narrative.
Yeah.
I'm super curious what you guys think, and I know there's a lot of hoopla, if you will, about Gen Z, and some people love Gen Z and some people hate Gen Z and some people think that millennials are lazy. I don't know. Everyone has views on everybody else, but I'm just curious what you guys think, because I think what we all can agree on is the people that are coming into the workforce now are really the first digital natives. They're really the first generation that they don't know what the before times were like before cell phones, when we all had, they're digital first. They don't know anything different. And so I'm curious for you guys, when it comes to like this younger force that's going to be coming into whether they're going to go work at Wells Fargo or whether they're going to start their own business, or maybe they're going to go be a freelancer. They might have had, whether it's a Facebook account or an Instagram account or a LinkedIn account for 10 years. And, by the way, they're 22 years old. They did it when they were 12.
Yeah.
How you guys think that that's going to affect the workplace?
I already have seen it. I think there's two sides of it. One, people who are early in their career tend to, in what I've seen, think that what they see on Twitter is what's actually happening in real life. So, for example, in the venture world, like there's a lot of noise. Everyone's chasing deals, but like that's not the work that's happening. And so it's and also because there is this native first, being very agile on social media does not set you up to have like a clean email inbox, or like pick up the phone and text or call people. And so it's interesting because it's a both and. There's a lot of things that like being native first doesn't teach you because it's this stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I love learning from early career people, because there's a lot of things that they can do efficiently, and they be out here hustling. They're like, I don't need to go to school. I'll just hustle. I'm like, that's right. That is correct.
Sorry.
Yeah, for me, I think, and I agree. I think it's the changes have already occurred. I think for for them coming into the workforce, companies are going to start to change, and I think even like HR, between HR and marketing, I think they're going to start to shift because the what you do in a digital life and what you do in the workplace, but because those lines are blurred now, right? There was an expectation of something. If I was hiring somebody and they had some post on Instagram, it could be like a huge thing. I think everyone in that generation has a huge thing that's already out there, and it's
Mhm.
just going to end up being accepted. But also from the HR and the marketing work, the way I see it in workplaces, is they're going to learn to adapt all of those followers they have. If you're hiring somebody with 1 million followers, and they're just they're working at whatever position in the company, there's a way to turn that on so that it benefits both the company and the person
Mhm.
to use that audience, and it's people are going to wake up to that. And I think there's going to be a separate, maybe it's either like a marketing or an HR in the corporate world, but they're going to reach out to that generation to realize how much, because they're natives and people that are leaders and tend to be older, that are coming into this and trying to make it up as they go along. It's going to be that native space is going to move over into the corporate world.
Well, and then I almost feel a little bad for people like us that are over the age of 30, because I do think that they have sort of this unfair advantage that they have been digitally native. So
Mhm.
they already know that their LinkedIn should look good. They already know how to curate their Instagram. They've never known anything different. So they've known that they have this sort of digital avatar, probably because also their parents are like, now don't post any risque pictures of yourself, so they've been very aware of like, okay, I've curated this version of myself online.
Mhm.
But I think for those, let's call it 30 and older, we don't have that mindset. We're
Right.
like, oh, but I'll meet somebody at the mixer and it'll be fine. We have not had that thought of like, well, what do I look like digitally? So do you
Mhm.
guys think that there is almost, I mean, that's just what I think, but I'm curious for your thoughts. Like, do you think that there's this unfair advantage that people younger kind of know about, but people older have just maybe not focused on as much?
Yeah, and I'll say as the probably the oldest person here, um, that it's even more so like that. I can see that divide. I see it with people in their 20s that are coaching on their businesses, and it just the things that make sense to them are things that I'm catching on to for in terms of like the marketing and things like that. The business structure wise, I can help them out tremendously. The big advantage that way, but the digitally native, it's I say they have an advantage, but I also think there's some anxiety that comes with it, and they need guidance on how to deal with that anxiety as well. I think that's part of it's the negative side of being digitally connected all the time.
Yeah. I had a bunch of thoughts here and they all left my brain. Um, what were we're talking about, but really wanted to talk about, we can move on
Just
to.
that age difference of people younger, you have kind of already curated a digital narrative of themselves because they've really never known anything different.
Yep.
But and maybe the age isn't 30. I just picked the age of 30. Maybe it's more like 25. I don't know. But like those in their, let's say, late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, because we haven't had to think about our digital presence, it's like, well, why would I do that?
Right.
Why do I even have to pay attention to that?
And yes, now I remember what I was going to say. So there are some people who, well, for me, because I stopped aging at 23. So I've just been that age ever since.
Me too.
However, like when I first turned 23, there were a lot of people who were like, I need a cleanse. So I'm going to stop. Or, when we reached 30, which I never did, but we're going to not go on Instagram anymore. I'm done with the TikToks. I'm not going to do it because it takes up too much of my time. It makes me feel bad about myself. And like, sometimes that can be the case on LinkedIn, and like, it's okay to take a break. And I totally respect people who I know are big boss dogs and they don't have shit on their LinkedIn page. and you like can't get a hold of them. They don't respond to you. And you're like, how does one get your time? And it's like, you got to know someone. You like, and sometimes I feel that way too. I'm like, I don't want people to know too much about what I do because I don't want them to think they have access to me like that. And that can change and go back and forth over time. But like I said, you can tell a lot about someone by how active they are and like what they're looking for.
Oh,
Can I just bring up
100%.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up with one of the comments that passed by about someone over 40 not wanting to ignore their LinkedIn. I had the conversation where I was coaching somebody recently, and I was looking at his LinkedIn page. He was looking for a job. You couldn't tell he was looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't tell any of his skills. And I'm like, I started coaching him on how to change things. I was like, let me help you with your LinkedIn profile. And he said, instead, could you just look at my resume and fix my resume for me?
Sorry, bub.
No.
No.
No. Why?
No, I can't help you with that.
No.
No. Well, and I love this point that Christopher just made about really surrounding yourself with people that are older, that are younger. We can all have mentorship. We can all learn things from somebody who's 18 years younger. And certainly, I don't know how to edit the TikToks like my niece does. And we can also learn stuff from people that are 18 years older, that someone's been in the game for 30 years and really has a lot of historical knowledge about what works and what hasn't. So I love this point that Christopher made, that really when you look for help from people, it really should be from a wide range and a wide spectrum, because I think that really does make a huge difference in the way that you can approach how to get help and how to really settle in to getting that help. And so I'm curious for you guys, if you had to kind of give one piece of advice or a homework assignment to anybody who is joining us today when it comes to digital networking, when it comes to their narrative or their presence, what is something that you maybe in the last 3-6 months have, maybe it's a thought, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's, joining us here, which I will already say every week because I think this is really helpful. But what's a homework assignment that you would give everyone who's joining in today?
I had two things. I think the first one was to do a scrub of who you're connected to, and take the time, an hour or whatever on a Friday while you're watching a movie, sipping wine, and just start disconnecting with people that you don't actually know. And I found that when I did that a few years back, I felt so much better because oftentimes when you see people that are common connections and you speak to that person, they're like, oh, I've actually never talked to that person. That's not helpful. And so I want my connections to actually be connections, because that's what I would like to see from others. Because if so that's one thing. And then second, you got to focus and have intention and know what you want out of it so that you're not spending hours and hours kind of floundering. Those are my two things.
Those are huge.
That's awesome. For me, I would say 100% joining CWK every Wednesday.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm not commenting as it goes live, so it's a little odd. But I would say this community and everyone that Kim's brought on, and the connections that we have from there are incredible. And then definitely take the cohort that Kim's offering. It's life-changing. It's shifted the way I look at my business. I changed the way I'm doing coaching, and the way I'm doing offering just based on that course and how people have found me on LinkedIn. And then I have a podcast recommendation, obviously Coffee with Kim as well. Kim just launched that, if you don't know that. One of the ones that I had been listening to, which I think it's on the power of nutrition in your brain, and it's from Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, of all people. It's funny, but he had from September of last year, he had a guest named Andrew Huberman, who talked about doing supplements and all kinds of nutrition and things like that that have changed the way the brain functions, which is pretty awesome. And then also, my wife Corrine has turned me on to Smartless with Jason Bateman and a few other people. I've just forgot their names, but it's a really funny, insightful podcast as well.
I haven't heard of those. I'm gonna have to go Google. I've heard of Armchair Expert. I haven't heard of, what would you say the second one?
Smartless.
Smartless.
Yeah,
That
with
one.
Jason Bateman and how am I forgetting his name? But it's a really good podcast. It's pretty funny. Sean Hayes and
Great.
somebody else, another actor from Arrested Development.
I'm going to have to check that one out. Well, I just wanted to say a big thank you guys for joining me today for this conversation, because like I said, I can get on my soapbox all day long talking about why this is important, what people should be doing. But I thought it would be really special to have you guys come on, because I think your perspective helps to say like, oh, it's not just Kim waving her finger in the air, being like, this is important. There are other humans that also think that this is important. And so thank you guys for taking the time to be here today. And I will also say, like Jeff said, the second cohort is now open. You can scan this little symbol on your phone, or you can go to careercapitalcourse.com. I would love to get on a call with you if you're unsure, or have you check out the website, do a little Nancy Drew stalking of your own. We love a good stalking session. So I think that would be something that could be interesting and could be a fit for you if it's something that you think that you are game for. So I just
don't even waste your time. Just sign up.
Just sign up.
Seriously.
I love it.
Can I just say something,
guys.
Pam?
Yes.
What I think, when you think about going into a cohort of something, you want to get like something out of it. And I think what Kim does really, really well is she's like, do this. Here's how you do this, X, Y, Z. Do that and do these 3 things. And it's like, okay. As opposed to like, and you should really think about this and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's very formulaic, tactical, yet Kim is also very human and she's hilarious. I was laughing so hard in the intro. So it's a really, really fun time.
That is so true. I love good actionable advice. It's actually one of my biggest complaints, speaking because we just had South by Southwest here in Austin last week. So one of my biggest complaints when I go to, whether it's a conference or panels or sessions, and I just feel like you hear these amazing stories like, oh, wow, this person started $100 million business. But your notepad that you kind of go with thinking like, okay, I'm going to take notes from this session with Mark Cuban, and it's going to be so great. And I'm going to get all these secrets. And you leave and your notebook's empty. And you're like, I heard an amazing story. Like, I was super entertained. Like, it was amazing. But there's no like tactics. There's no like strategies that you leave with that then you can go home and do. So I will say, because that is my biggest complaint in life, I definitely do not do that in the cohort. It is very tactile. It is very like, here are the strategies. Here are the 5 changes you need to make. Here's what we need to do, because I just think that that's what makes the difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, so true.
Can I just share? This is my notebook. The very beginning of this book is all from the cohort that we took. And it's literally action items. I have stars for things that I had to take action on, for things that I changed, for answering the how and the why for each thing. And I still use this when I post all the time.
I love it. I love good stars. I also star a lot in my notebook. So we're the same in that way. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. You are the absolute best. I just wanted to say a big cheers to you, and big cheers to everybody who joined us. Thanks to Giacomo and Jim and Laura and Andrew and Carlin and Kevin and Anya and Jen. And I can't even name all the names. I'm trying to scroll and look through them so fast, but thank you everybody for joining. And we will see you right back here next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, same time, same place. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Cheers.